Hi, this is Bobby Caldwell, and you're listening to Dug Chant on Sound Fusion Radio.
Hello.
Hello, is that Mary?
Yes.
Hello, it's Dug Chant from Sound Fusion Radio, calling up to speak to Bobby regarding an interview.
Oh, yes. I might have mixed. Is now the time? I might have miscalculated the time differences.
Ah, yeah, of course. That just reminds me. Of course,
that.
Yeah. Our clocks changed, didn't they? Last Saturday night. Yeah, we're on British summertime now, not British mean time.
You're right. Bear with me one sec.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'll just get him. Hang on a minute.
No worries.
Honey, Bobby, this isn't live, is it?
Sorry? No, it's not.
It's a live interview.
No, luckily it's not. No, what I tend to do for my jazz show, I normally record the interview and then I
record it.
I record it, then edit it, and then slot Bobby's tunes into the interview as I do the show. So at the present time, no, you're not live, but I am recording it.
Good, because I just realized he ran to the corner store and should be back. Let me see. Yes, he did. He should be back literally in 5 minutes.
Okay. Do you want me to call?
Sorry about this.
No worries.
No worries. Back?
Yeah, can I call back in about 5 minutes' time then, if that's okay with you?
He should be back in 5 minutes. If you want to cushion it, make it 8 minutes.
Okay, that gives me a chance to make myself a cup of tea then.
All righty, I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's no worries. To say I didn't realise. It's as soon as you said that, I suddenly thought, oh yeah, our clocks have changed.
Yeah, I didn't. When I calculated it,
yeah,
you're right. It was before daylight savings time. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, there's no worries. I've got a daughter who's is out in Australia at the moment, and we keep mucking up. When every time we ring up there, she's in bed and she keeps moaning at us.
Okay. Well, I will have the phone right here and grab him right when he walks through the door.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll speak to you in a little while.
In a minute. Okay,
thanks then. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello there.
Again.
Doug, he's just walking through the door. He just pulled into the garage.
Oh, dear.
So you bear with me for 1 minute.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think about the clocks changing. No, he'll be just fine. Let's see here. And here he is. Honey?
Yeah.
I have Doug on the phone. It's your interview. I screwed up. I forgot about the clocks changing.
Oh.
Yeah. So he is just here. Here you go.
Hey, Doug.
Hi, Bobby. Sorry.
We had a little senior moment with the time change.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about it either. It wasn't until I rang and said, and of course I suddenly realised, of course, our clocks changed last Sunday night, so it's obviously thrown everything out.
Well, no, it's all fine. So we're all right.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So did you get everything you needed to get from the shops?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about this. You know, say it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And I'd like to thank you for coming on Sound Fusion Radio. What I'm doing, I'm actually recording this. So what I will do, I will edit it and then slot your records and your tunes into the show, into relevant places, and then it will probably go out on air in a week's 2 weeks' time on a Monday night, if that's okay.
That's very good. Thanks for that.
Brilliant. Right, where do I start? So I'd like to thank you on behalf of all our listeners for joining us on Sound Fusion Radio.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you were born in Manhattan. And gather, did your parents and that move to Miami because of their work? Because you were obviously brought up in Miami.
Well, actually, they didn't move to Miami until I was, I believe I was four years old at that time. But no, they were heavily involved in the industry, television and theater. They had a television show from 51 to 53, I think, and then continued on even after we moved to Miami. They continued to do theater, summer stock, and road shows for quite some time. And eventually, they left the industry for something, if you will, more stable. In that respect, nothing's changed in 50 years.
No, not in the music and entertainment industry. It's still a very volatile industry, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is.
In work 1 minute and out of work the next.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You say you obviously moved to Miami. You say aged 4. When did you start to actually playing instruments, and who influenced you there with starting to take up playing the piano?
Right. Well, my first instrument was guitar, and I was self-taught. I think I bought my first guitar when I was 10.
Yeah.
And I was relentless working on the guitar, and I think eventually, at some point, my parents could see that I was serious about it, so they wanted me to have formal training. And that's where the piano came in. So I took private lessons for probably 5 years. And I have to say, in retrospect, pretty glad I did, even though it was unbearable at the time. But I find I call on theory, many times, songwriting, arranging, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Was that a type of classical type of music training then, was it originally, or?
Yes, it was classical. Yeah.
So who were your early influences in music?
Oh, my goodness. Well, Doug, you got to remember that, this was at a time when radio was just, in my opinion, was just spectacular. And I have to go back to Billboard's Hot 100, the hit parade, if you will, where on any local, pop station, you would hear all these different kinds of music, everything from Sinatra to the Beatles to the Four Tops, Spinners, country and western. And that's what made radio back then, such a wonderful thing, because all of these styles existed in one format.
Yeah.
And it made for, enrichment for the listener, not being stuck into one pigeonhole, meaning styles. And somehow, down through the years, everything got split off and compartmentalized, and now we have, formats that are, basically true to their format and their format only.
Yeah.
And I think it helped to kind of like erode radio, as we used to know it, and that, that's, you could say the same thing for television as well. I have, whenever I get sick of watching TV, I can always go back to the original Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and relive that stuff again. It was a great era.
Yeah.
But I think you catch my drift on this.
Yeah, no, I do, because obviously I'm 55 myself, and growing up here in the UK, again, loads and loads of different musical influences I had, but for some reason I was always drawn to soul music. I don't know why. My brothers and sisters used to bring home Tamla Motown LPs and records, and for some reason I was always drawn to that type of style of music.
Right.
So yeah. So so what I would say, what actual bands and groups would you say were your type of influence then? I know you said lots of different influences, but was there anyone in particular?
Oh wow, that is a tough question. No, not one group in particular, because I was pretty much running the gamut through all styles. I just loved music in general.
Yeah.
So I pretty much would listen to anything and everything besides polkas, And I guess you could say, I did the underground thing, listening to Cream and Hendrix and a lot of the underground groups that came out of the UK.
Yeah.
And obviously, I was wrapped up in the British invasion and pretty much learned every Beatles song there was to learn. And at the same time was a huge Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell fan, Spinners, Four Tops, Otis Redding, James Brown, and then leaping across once again, the styles to Sinatra. So I'm pretty well rounded that way.
Yeah. I was doing the opposite to you then, because I couldn't wait to get my hands on American imports and listen to the latest stuff that was coming across from the USA.
Isn't that odd, though, that we're both in the same age bracket and we're anxious to get our hands on, British groups, and you guys are trying to get the American groups.
Yeah.
It's it's pretty noteworthy, too, I think.
Yeah. So you said you obviously took up playing the piano and obviously guitar as well. Which were your actual first top of live performances? Where did you actually start performing? Was it a high school or something like that?
Yeah, exactly right. Junior high school. I put my first band together when I was, 13 years old, playing high school sock hops and junior high school sock hops and, local clubs in the area. And, it wasn't so hard to find, people that played back then. There was always somebody in school who had a guitar and an amplifier and was knocking about.
Yeah.
So, it was pretty easy back then. And I look at, the circle of friends my daughters have. They're both out of school now, but growing up, nobody was playing. It was very strange.
Yeah.
And again, there it is again, a real shift and a whole new paradigm in the way kids listen to music and perceive music.
That's correct. Yeah. The download format and everything like that, I think, has taken away a lot in some respects, because I know myself, grab a hold of an LP and pull the sleeve out and see who's actually played on the LP and who the players were and everything always has interested me, and obviously you don't get that with the MP3 and download format.
That's very true. Pretty much my fan base, they still like to have the artwork.
Yeah.
They still like to read the credits and see who's involved. And when possible, they like to have the lyrics too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's curious because I don't think my daughters I have twin daughters, they're 21 now. I don't think I've ever seen them buy a CD.
Yeah. So you saying you obviously your first performances now. Did you ever record any of those early performances at all?
No, I don't think I'd want you to hear that, Doug.
No, to say, I know sometimes it's interesting to go back and listen to where you come from and where you started.
Right. Well, I didn't actually start writing until I was out of high school by the time I really started writing. And I had moved to Los Angeles because that's basically where you had to be in the business. So I had a group out there. We played all the top 40 clubs, and when we could, we'd work in original songs into our sets, which basically consisted of, the top 40 songs that were popular in the country at any given time.
Yeah.
And, at some point, I had amassed a lot of original recordings, albeit, not necessarily professionally done, but, worthy of listening to. So I had all these cassettes, in a grocery bag. And actually, a couple of those songs ended up on my debut album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you actually sign for TK Records then?
Well...
And how did they actually pick you up?
I'll be completely honest with you. L.A. had pretty much defeated me. And I was really, at a point, very despondent and discouraged. And I thought I might want to, get out and go back to Miami. My father was kind of like trying to lure me to go into business with him. He was a real estate developer. And, that had very little appeal to me, but I was seriously thinking about it. So I did end up going back to Miami with my tail between my legs, if you will. And my mom was very persistent about me going to check out this local record label named TK Records. She had drawn my attention to a cover story in the Miami Herald, which was all about Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Yeah.
And how they were a huge breakout act for TK Records. And on her, persistence, I went down there one day with a bunch of songs. And that week, I signed my first record deal. So it's odd that, the whole thing was kind of waiting in my backyard to begin with.
Yeah, I would say TK Records, it was such a diverse record label as well, wasn't it? There was so many different styles within the label.
Yes, that's true. And yet most of the styles, a lot of their acts, were coming from an R&B format. Even Casey and the Sunshine Band, albeit disco, was R&B influenced.
Yeah.
So their whole angle was starting something on the R&B charts and crossing it over to the pop charts. And they were pretty successful at doing that.
Yeah, they were a massive label because I interviewed Timmy Thomas a couple of weeks ago.
Did you really?
Yeah. And he was telling me that a lot of the guys from TK Records have been getting back together and doing shows. And he's saying that he's hoping to bring the TK Records show over to the UK at some stage. Yeah.
I got to know Timmy very well. It's been years since I've seen him. Decades.
Yeah, he's good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say he's good. He's re-released Why Can't We Live Together with O.B. Lords. So it's a new version of that has just been released. So it's quite a different version.
Well, that's marvelous. I have to keep my eyes out for that.
Yeah. So What You Won't Do for Love. Now, obviously, absolute groundbreaking record for you, and obviously it's been sampled by so many artists over the years. What was actually behind that record? What was the actual the theme? What inspired you to write that?
There's a good story that goes with this, if the time allows. I had finished the album, and proudly presented it to TK Records. And What You Won't Do for Love was not on the album. And while there was a lot of excitement about, the songs that were on the album, it was Henry Stone, the president of the label, who came to me and said, we're all really excited about this record. We just don't feel we have our first single. Now, Doug, bear in mind, I beat myself up pretty good making this record. My first album, I wanted it to be as good as it could possibly be. So I dawdled a bit and, spent a lot of time in the studio. And after all of that, they come and say they don't have their first single. So in haste, we go back in and we, I created this little kind of a groove and quickly sketched out, some lyrics and melody for it, basically drawing on a recent event in my life that was going on, being jilted by this girl in Los Angeles. So it was like kind of an exorcism for me. And then, the song started to come together, overdubbing the guitars and creating the horn line that became so synonymous with the record. And after, basically it didn't take more than a week to put that song together.
Right.
And lo and behold, after all the work I put into the album, this song ends up being the breakout single.
Yeah.
It's just the way.
The other thing I was going to say to you regarding, obviously, the LP and everything, the record label were a little bit concerned, weren't they, about the fact that you were a blue-eyed soul as such. And I gather that the profile on the album is just basically you sitting on a chair. Well,
we had gone out to, I think, South Beach in Florida to do a photo shoot. And at the time, my hair was down to my shoulders. And this is what caused the concern, I think. And we had a release date that was quickly coming up, and everyone's like tossing about ideas about, how do we approach a cover that we can use? So I took a photo of myself that I had found and created the park bench. So I basically drew that.
Right.
And sketched around this cutout of a photo of me sitting somewhere. It wasn't a park bench. And I presented this concept to them, and they just loved it. And apparently, obviously, it solved all the problems and the concerns.
Because you also continued that style on with a lot of your other LP covers.
I did, because it became a thing.
Yeah.
However, there was a price to pay for that, because my first major tour, Natalie Cole, had the #1 record in the country, and What You Won't Do for Love, I think at the time, was something like 7 or 8 in the top 10. And Natalie was nice enough to invite me to open her show, and it was her first tour. And I think her hit single was This Will Be, from her debut album. All right, so meanwhile, What You Won't Do for Love had already conquered the R&B charts, and it crossed over to the pop charts, like I had mentioned to you earlier. Well, our first show was in Atlanta at a rather big venue, like 7,500 seats. And everyone's coming out to see the soul brother, Bobby Caldwell. Well, Doug, I can tell you, when I came out, a hush came over the audience. And that was the night I became a man, actually. It was, the silence was deafening. And because everyone's expecting a soul brother to come out, and instead there's this cracker with white hair down to his shoulders. So it was, I was a bit taken back by that.
Yeah.
And yet it ended up working as a plus, because even to this day, I've got people, swear that I'm black, and, people have wagered bets and all, and it just goes on and on. Although I think, pretty much, for the most part, everyone, knows that I'm white, and, openly accepts that, and it's, a testament to the fact that, music really should have no boundaries.
That's correct. Yeah. So it should break down the boundaries, shouldn't it?
Right.
As saying, the LP went platinum then, double platinum.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. And also...
something that's hard to achieve today.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's not many LPs that do that these days.
No, I mean, if an album sells, 1 million copies, the major labels are pretty much dancing in the streets. And before, it was, back in the day, it was considered, well, that's great, you got a platinum record. But the labels were selling, 10, 12 million records, it was like nothing.
Yeah.
And now look.
Yeah, that's right. You a couple of 100,000 and you're successful now.
That's right.
So I'd say, obviously, we had it over here. We also down to the third time as well. It was another massive tune here at the same time. And so what you want to do for love, where I used to DJ at, it was always the tune that we played out on the last thing at night. So it was like the going home record as such, because everybody would have a little, romantic dance and then leave the nightclub.
Oh, my God. Wait, now, is this London proper?
No, I actually live in a town called Eastbourne, which is on the south coast, and I used to DJ in a club on the south coast of England.
I see.
So to say it was the big record in the end of the evening. That was.
Yeah, oddly enough, I never actually got to perform in England, although I've been there several times, and I'm actually. My whole family tree is English, basically.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I think some relatives...
Brighton.
Brighton, that was
Brighton,
it.
Yeah. Well, that's just on the side. That's where I went to university and college in Brighton, and that's where I used to hit all the record shops over there, because it's got a fantastic record shops and record fairs they have over in Brighton.
Yeah, that's all I've been told.
Yeah. So, and also, as they, obviously they were hits over here in the UK, us at club level, but you made it huge in Japan with those tracks as well.
Yes, that TK album was distributed in Japan by CBS Sony, and just was incredibly big there. I remember my first visit over there, and actually getting recognized on the street. It was just a bizarre feeling, going 10,000 miles from home, and having people on another continent, like recognize you it was so sobering.
Yeah.
And I've been going there every year since then. And every album I've made since then has been released in Japan.
Yeah, so in Asia and Japan, then you've got a very, very strong and a very big following.
Huge, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's, you were talking about 32, 33 years going over there.
Yeah.
And so as a result, because they're such loyal fans, many times I look out in the audience and I see the people who became fans in the beginning, and of course they're in their 60s, some 70. Their kids who are grown up, and their kids' kids. So it's like 3 generations of people.
Yeah.
That you can find in the Japanese audience. Even here in the States, is pretty much the same.
Yeah. It's to say it's amazing how much the Japanese really do appreciate the jazz music.
Yeah, and they're the funny thing, once they accept an artist over there, they're incredibly loyal. I mean, they'll keep buying product as long as you put it out. You know.
Yeah, and there's been some great jazz players come out of Japan as well. People like Sadao Watanabe, Hiroshi Fukumura, and people like that.
Yeah. They've definitely come into their own as far as their domestic music.
Yeah.
And they're making, great records.
Yeah.
Great sounding records. So, yeah.
So, say you waited a couple of years before you released Cat in the Hat.
Yes. A couple of years went by.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for that was like What You Won't Do for Love. Its chart life was extraordinary.
Mm.
When the song was first released, we were up against a struggle. It was the end of the disco era, and pretty much it was a situation of I was in the right time at the right place. But it wasn't without work. It took a while, and What You Won't Do for Love even disappeared from the charts and was resurrected and then went all the way eventually. But it was a 9-month process getting that record to actually make its way up the chart.
Yeah, and to say in the meantime, you did quite a lot of production work as well around the 1980 mark.
I did. I did some stuff on the side for TK.
Yes. You produced Mr. Willie Beaver Hale's LP, Beaver Fever.
Oh yes, Little Beaver.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We actually, if I remember correctly, I think our birth date was the same.
All right.
August 15th.
Yeah. I say because Groove On, what a track! Oh, brilliant! Love that track.
Yeah.
And that's
I love Party Down. You remember that?
Yeah. Well, I say it's still a massive track over here, even now in the clubs. Groove On. It still regularly gets played.
Oh, awesome.
So, when did you actually leave TK Records then and move on to Polydor?
I'm first of all, I'm trying to remember the reason we did that.
Yeah.
And it escapes me. It wasn't. There wasn't an internal problem.
No.
But I had some management that thought we might be better served with a more apparent major label, and Polydor UK was, for the most part, that label.
Yeah.
And we did 2 albums for them.
Because say in the top of mid-80s, a lot of the top of jazz artists and the R&B artists went more rock orientated, didn't they? And I noticed obviously, listening to August Moon and that it's much more rock influenced. Right.
Yeah. It's a tough call because once you achieve success, well, you want to repeat that.
Yeah.
It's only human. And sometimes, artists will get sidetracked, I want to do this now, or forgetting, the fan base that they've established. And I openly admit to, doing that. But
there's a lot of artists went that way, didn't they?
They did. But I fortunately was able to recover my career by revisiting, what got me started in the first place. So there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. So, say, it's obviously in the mid-'80s now, you did a lot of writing and production for other artists, e.g. people like the Commodores.
Yes, I did. It was that time. I had already, done 2 albums for Polydor, and I decided, just to get out of it for a minute and, went back to Los Angeles and, made some inroads with some other huge writers. Became very friendly with, all the guys in Toto, Chicago.
Yeah.
And in doing that, was able to write some stuff with songwriters that have already, had seen tremendous success. And was able to get, 2 songs onto Chicago album, twice, actually 2 albums.
Yeah.
So 3 songs. And then, wrote some things for Natalie Cole and for Roberta Flack, Al Jarreau, Boz Scaggs, the Commodores. And I think because of my relationship with Chicago, I would regularly go over to the recording studio that actually belonged to David Foster, their producer at the time.
Right.
And I was constantly giving David songs. And there was this period of time when, unbeknownst to me, the lead singer, the actual voice of Chicago, Peter Cetera, was planning to leave the group. I had no idea about this, and I had written a song for their forthcoming album, a song called Next Time I Fall in Love. And I get a call one day from Peter Cetera. I'm amazed. And he says, Bobby, I don't know if you know, but I've left the group. I said, oh, my God. He said that when I was collecting my stuff from the studio, I saw this cassette tape, and I just happened to pick it up and put it in my pocket. And it was Next Time I Fall in Love. And about 6 months later, he had the #1 record in the country with Amy Grant.
Yeah.
It ended up with the voice I had written the song for in the first place.
Say, quite ironic in some ways, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think it may be a one-of-a-kind story. I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah. So you didn't actually release anything under your own name until 1988, and then Heart of Mine came out, which again went double platinum, was best record of the year. Yes.
It was, and here is where these formats came into play. There was this whole new adult contemporary / smooth jazz, and a lot of artists that had occupied the pop charts were kind of being relegated to this adult contemporary. Major artists like Sting and Phil Collins, on and on and on. But, I had found myself, a home, meaning a format that was really embracing, for starters, the Heart of Mine album.
Yeah.
And several albums after that. This is at a time when vocals were very, very predominant in the smooth jazz format. Today, they're not as predominant, but this was, basically easy listening, adult contemporary, smooth jazz, basically all the same stuff.
Yeah, and you had a member in your band, the one and only Boney James at the time.
Yeah. Boney, actually, of all the saxophone players, Boney had the longest tenure with us. He was with us for almost 5 years.
Yeah. Again, I interviewed Boney last August, and he was telling me that it was Paul Brown, your engineer, that sort of picked him up and gave him his sort of solo break as well. That's
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still talk to Paul often. And Paul did. We did some great work in the studio. But Boney was a consummate musician. And, really great fellow. We had a great time on the road together.
Yeah.
And it was great for me as far as a show and being able to have a lot of talent on stage, that you can use. And I still do that today. Our band members are extraordinarily talented and kind of always been of the mindset, hey, more is better. If I'm up there for 90 minutes, it just makes more of a show to be able to feature, incredible players. And Boney was one of those people.
Yeah. So in 1991, you brought the Stuck on You LP out, which you recorded with a full orchestra.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that like, actually recording with, with a multitude of musicians?
Well, the Stuck on You album, the song Stuck on You was an exception to that particular album. And I really didn't realize the enormity of the sound until I had actually gone on after that and done a full-on orchestra with strings and horns at Capitol Records. And that was something that was an extraordinary experience.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I still when it's called for, and I do get a lot of requests from, show promoters. Well, they want the big band.
Yeah.
So we still do that a lot.
Yeah. Was that the Blue Condition LP?
Yeah, the Blue Condition, and after that we did the Come Rain or Come Shine LP.
Yeah.
And they were both done at Capitol. And of course, being in that studio it just reeks of nostalgia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not only is it a wonderful sounding room, but for your listeners, they have this microphone locker. It's almost like a cigar humidor. And I was taken back there upon my first visit to Capitol and shown their mic selection, which, dates back 50, 60, 70 years of some of the most expensive microphones. You can't even buy these microphones anymore. And some of the microphones had laundry marker written on them. One of them said Sinatra. The other one said Martin. It just went on. Even the Beatles recorded there, and I forget which cuts were done there, but one of the microphones had McCartney written on it. And I remember, being coaxed to go ahead and choose a mic that I felt was right for myself. I picked Sinatra's mic. I figured it was good enough for him. Be good enough for me.
And of course, you played Sinatra in an acting role. The Rat Pack is back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was a wild experience because the room we had was at a really wonderful hotel and was the last great hotel on the Strip in Vegas called the Desert Inn, in a place that the boys, meaning the Rat Pack, had performed at before. So we got this room that they had been in, and we did the whole thing retro, back to the era, including the cigarette girls who used to walk around in these little scantily clad suits and, sell cigarettes. And we had some of the trappings that the Rat Pack had, like their booze cart on stage,
right?
A live orchestra, and at the time it was the only show in Las Vegas with a live orchestra. Everyone was using canned music.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. We had a ball doing that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, brilliant show. I'd love to have gone and seen that.
It's still, I don't know how many, but there are maybe upwards of 10 different Rat Pack shows all over the world right now.
Yeah. Well, I've actually seen, obviously, certain Rat Pack ones over here and everything, and some absolutely brilliant shows. And, some of the singers are doing Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think, I can say by looking at the faces of the audience, when I was doing the show, I did it for about a year and a half, from 99 to almost the end of 2001. And, the amount of people that would keep coming back was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's, they've wanted to taste that old Vegas,
Yeah. Well, again, this the music just doesn't date, does it, at all?
Well, yeah, and there's that. Not just about the music, but I guess the camaraderie that they had together.
Yeah.
Was helped the comedic aspect of the show. And basically what we were doing was a transcript of the Rat Pack show that they did at the Sands in 62, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it was almost word for word.
Yeah, and poor old Sammy Davis was the butt of all the jokes, wasn't he?
No. But it didn't bother him a bit.
No. But yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. But as I say, it's nice to say you've gone back and done some nice big band and jazz LPs. It's so refreshing to hear that sound.
Yeah, and it's. I just did a show last weekend in Bethesda, Maryland.
Yeah.
A beautiful theater there. And, basically it's 90 minutes, and I'm doing all Sinatra songs, the original arrangements that Nelson Riddle had written for him in the 60s. And, I can't tell you how much fun it is, especially when you've got a fabulous orchestra. It's a lot of fun.
So I would say you've obviously recording stuff for your own label now.
Yeah. Going back to the problems with the record industry, it became evident very quickly that I would be best served, just to do everything in-house. And, Doug, it's gotten to the point now where the technology's gotten so incredible that, I've got a state-of-the-art studio here at the house. So all the recording happens here.
Yeah.
We have state-of-the-art, very close to where we live, state-of-the-art disc manufacturer. And then we have, the people who maintain our website, who assist in a lot of aspects of the artwork for any CD. So basically, you had mentioned earlier, if you sell 100,000 records, you're doing great these days. And so understand that if I write all the songs here at home, and I record everything here at home, and then manufacture everything here or close by, and then, also package it here, at the end of the day, you're looking at a total cost for a CD, artwork, packaging, everything, maybe $1.75.
Yeah.
And so selling those at $18 a CD, you can see 100,000 is you're doing really good.
Yeah.
So,
and I suppose the nice thing is you're in control of everything there as well.
Yeah, there's that. And it's not without problems because retail here in the States, and I'm sure maybe not so bad in the UK, but here in the States it's brutal. There's no more retail for records.
No, most of our major record stores have now gone. There's only a couple of them left, and obviously the main place to get music now is through like either iTunes or Amazon. But
there was a place near Piccadilly, I remember, was a huge record store there.
Yeah, the big HMV.
That's it.
Yeah. HMV's still going. It's hanging on by its fingertips.
Yeah, and that's pretty much. I know it's almost like the death roll.
Yeah.
So my point of sale becomes concerts, and after a show, I will sit in line however long it takes, and people will buy the CD or bring in CDs they've already purchased online at our website. So this is where the sales occur.
Yeah.
And I get people from the UK, I get people from Denmark, I get people from Canada, Bangladesh. It's outstanding. Some of the people that contact us and, they want the whole library or they want a specific album, and we do a lot of business that way.
Yeah, I say over here we got obviously a lot of specialist shops that do the soul and the R&B products here now, and vinyl's making a huge comeback in all those shops as well. So it's nice to have that organic sound back.
It is, and I'm as wonderful as the CD is, meaning that obviously it lasts a lot longer than a piece of vinyl. I'm sorry, they don't sound as good.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
It's like putting on a hazmat outfit. It's crystal clear, but you can really hear the differences.
Yeah, there's something about the depth of the music.
Yes, you really can tell if you play a Beatles album and then play it on a remastered Beatles, whatever, Meet the Beatles. The difference is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
So, are you recording anything at the present time?
I just finished something.
Right.
Which is the next release forthcoming in Japan. And here, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it here in the States. But the project I did with this fellow named Jack Splash, who is in Miami.
Right.
And year before last won the R&B, Grammy with CeeLo for a girl named Fiona.
Right.
So Jack, I handed over production of this current album to Jack. I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, and I'm just going to write and sing. Well, that's basically what I did, and I did play a lot of guitar and did some programming on the record, but I basically let Jack have a go, and he did a wonderful job, and a lot less blood, sweat, and tears for me.
Oh, brilliant. And what about touring? Are you going out on tour at all this year?
I'm always touring, and I can't say touring in the literal sense of the word, because we don't do blocks of time out on the road. I might do 3 cities in a row, come back a week, and then go out again, do 2 more cities. All bunched up together, though. I'm out there. I'm probably do 120 dates a year.
So is there any chance of you coming over to the UK at some stage and doing a concert for us?
You know what? It's last year we tried frantically to put together something with Ronnie Scott.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't make it work, man.
That's a shame, because I'm going up to Ronnie Scott's this Friday to see Bill Summers and the Headhunters.
Yeah, I think the last thing I saw there was actually online. It was Jeff Beck, which was just ridiculous. It was so good. Yeah. And, wow, what a brilliant guitar player he is. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, it'd be brilliant if you'll come over to Ronnie Scott's. I'll definitely come up and see you.
Well, it's not dead yet, because we were actually... it was left off, I was thinking about, contracting a big band there.
Yeah.
And flying over myself.
Mm. Yeah.
So we're still trying to make this work.
Yeah, because jazz over here at the moment is making a huge type of comeback in some ways. We've got loads of new jazz festivals coming on. As I say, the scene's very, very healthy over here in the UK at the moment.
Right. Yeah. I miss those cucumber sandwiches, man.
Yeah. Well, so while you were down the shop and that, I went and made myself a nice cup of tea. So, all right. I would like to say a big thank you for joining us, and I'd say a big thank you to you, because it's been an absolute privilege to speak to you.
You too. It's been lovely, and thanks so much for thinking of me, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very, very much for your time. And I know all our listeners here in the UK appreciate your music very, very much. And it's been an absolute privilege to be able to interview you, Bobby. And I'd like to thank your lovely, lovely wife for the interruption this afternoon. And I'd like to...
Well, we made it through. That's okay.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All the best.
I'll be putting the show together, and I'll be putting it out probably in about 2 weeks' time. So what I'll do, I'll Facebook you or email you to let you know that it's going out on air.
Fabulous! I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, I'll make it. I normally put it on podcasts on Podomatic anyway, so it will be out there.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much, then, Bobby.
All the best to you too, Doug.
Yeah, thank you. Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Bobby Caldwell, and you're listening to Dug Chant on Sound Fusion Radio.